Hi, and welcome to the Tattoo Teacher podcast, where we get to know the person behind the professional, going below the surface of what we see. Join with me as I talk with some incredible individuals from around Australia and the globe. I hope you enjoy this great conversation with Matthew Wemyss as much as I did. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever, what time of day it is you happen to be listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. On today's episode, I have got Matthew Wemyss. Most people pronounce it incorrectly. He's a Stoke-on-Trent boy, but he's currently living in Romania. So, Matthew, you hold your Master's in Teaching. You have a Media Communications degree. You have a National Professional Qualification in Headship for School Leadership. You're also a Level 1 British School Inspector for British Overseas Schools. You are currently the Assistant School Director of the Cambridge School of Bucharest. You've held some other positions, Teachers of Computer Science, Assistant Head of Year, and Assistant Head Teacher as well, prior to moving to Bucharest. You're passionate about integrating technology, especially AI at this current time. You recently won the Ed Futurist Award for AI Pioneer for 2024. You run that AI Education conference, which is about to kick off for its second year next year. And you have just recently launched a podcast as well. So, Matthew, thank you and welcome to the Tattoo Teacher podcast.
No, it's great to be here. We're also fellow tattoo teacher. We're already loaded up.
Well, you've just pipped one of my last questions, so there we go.
Sorry.
That's what I like to see. That we need more tattoo teachers in the world. We bring that little bit of flair that I think is well needed in education these days.
Well, it's one of those things where I actually met my wife through Tinder, and we met after I'd been to a parents' evening, and obviously I came in with I took the tie off, so it looked a little bit more casual, but I was there in a shirt, and she was like, "Oh, teacher," just very straight and narrow. Then halfway through the date, I rolled up my sleeves, and she was like, "Oh, this just got interesting." So I think I can be, I keep them covered at work. I think I don't know if it's just me separating that work me, used to be Mr. Wemyss in the UK, now Mr. Matthew in Romania. But from me as a person, so I think sometimes it helps you kind of switch character. I feel a bit more of myself when the tattoos are out.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I couldn't agree more. There was a number of schools that I worked at prior to where I'm at now, where it was collar and tie, no tattoos were shown, no earrings could be worn. And look, I did it, but yeah, it was always good to get a t-shirt, and a pair of shorts on, and just be who I actually am.
One thing I didn't think through was sports days. So then and it was fine in the UK because you could always layer up. I could always wear a long sleeve something and put a sports top on top. And then when you hit 40 degrees in Romania, and you've got a sports day, I was like, how do I handle this? So I had to go buy some really expensive Under Armour long sleeve breathable things, so I didn't actually just die on the sports track.
Yeah.
So consider that if you're considering getting sleeve tattoos, think about sports days.
Yeah, because it's still as much as tattoos are societally more and more accepted, it's still a funny thing in the world of education, isn't it?
I think it's less and less, more and more accepted. There are teachers at school that have tattoos, small ones on the wrist and little things there. And obviously the kids can see mine, it comes to a shirt, or if I'm leaning over to help a kid do something on the desk, the shirt will come up. So I'm not hiding them. I just think it's maybe my own personal mindset thing. Maybe it's just for me. I kind of keep them covered to be maybe it's that old antiquated. Maybe it's a mindset I grew up with that I think it's more professional when they're covered. But maybe that's just me, my own personal experiences, or what I've been told growing up, seeping in.
Yeah. Oh well, look, and it's as each to their own. We've got to tread our path. We've got to be authentic, because the students pick up on that. They pick up on the if you're not authentic to your true self. So
Oh no, and like if you don't tell them what your tattoo is, you can play the game where they're trying to
yeah,
guess what it is. That's always a good game.
yeah. I always get the how many do you actually have, sir? How many do you actually have? And it's like, well, it depends what you count as tattoos. So
No, we have got a few members of staff that wear them out with short sleeve shirts and stuff. But I just don't know. It's just maybe it's me. Maybe I need to give it a go this year. Maybe that I'll put that on the challenge list.
I will put it out there. Absolutely, we've
But
got
when
to
we go
push
to like
ourselves.
staff team building and things like that, I'll have them out. Maybe it's maybe it's me. Maybe I'll give it a go this year. You'll find out soon.
Well, I'll wait
I'll
I'll
see if
wait
I'm
for the LinkedIn.
advertising. I'm open to work on LinkedIn. Then see how it
Yes.
goes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. We'll wait to see that little green ring on your profile picture. Hey, we could talk tattoos all day, and which I love to do, because they are an extension of a personality. They show who we are to a certain extent, or some of the things that we just love to do, and some of our passions behind it. I mean, I know mine all have significance to either places I've visited or things that have happened throughout my life. So yeah, I've never got one of those late night too many schooners or too many
So
pints tattoos.
these ones, like I've got one little Chinese symbol thing here, and that was I paid for a friend's tattoo when I was 18. And I was like, I just stayed in the tattoo shop all day with him. So I'd been in the tattoo shop for like 10 hours. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be in a tattoo shop for 10 hours and not get a tattoo. So I did like a little Chinese symbols with all like the rage back in wherever, I can't remember how old I was, probably just turned 18. Um, but I was listening to Incubus at the time, so I got it red because like the guy had like the red tattoos. So I thought that was
Yes.
super classy, but obviously like aged incredibly badly. These ones all have meaning, but these two are me just going. I got into the habit of getting a tattoo in the October break, the half terms. So I started just going into tattoo studios and going, "What's your favorite thing to tattoo?" And then these twos are there. I was just like, "What's your favorite thing to do?" Because you know you're going to get a good tattoo.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, maybe I'll have to try that in the future.
As long as we like agreed what their favorite thing was, I think if they come back and I was like, "No, I don't want like that on my arm," like oh, it's swastikas or something like that. Run
Yeah,
away.
there's some loose units out there, that's for sure. So,
Oh no, but yeah, I vetted their favorite. But yeah, it's a good way to get a good quality tattoo. I found out.
oh, that's perfect. I love it. I love it. Hey, hey, this is what the podcast is all about: getting to know the
Well, we've
person
covered the
behind
tattoo part
the
now. We should probably be
yeah.
on to the teacher part.
Hey, we probably should. Um, so I'm looking at, we've chatted many times online. This is the first time I've actually spoken face to face. Albeit through a computer screen. As much as I'd love to get to your AI education conference, the commute to Bucharest from the Gold Coast just a little bit inconvenient. So maybe one day in the future, but you just never know. But you, uh, you're leading a school, or you're helping lead a school in Romania. You love technology. You've worked your way up through, I'm assuming your communications degree was probably your first foray into the university world.
Yeah, that
Um,
was yeah.
and then you've got your masters of teaching eventually. But what's your why behind it all? So I look forward to hearing the journey. But what's your why? Why are you where you are now and doing what you're doing?
So when I was growing up, like I did not see the point in education. I got C's, just about scraped C's at GCSE, and I got a B for a subject mainly because I liked the teacher. I liked my history teacher. And then I went to college, the sixth form college, and completely failed. Got like E's, D, like I got one D maybe, or maybe just E's. Just didn't like. I went from loving history because of the teacher to the just hating history because of the teacher.
Yeah.
And I just kind of just didn't like education. I just didn't feel kind of. I went to a sixth form because I followed my friends, and I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but I wished I'd gone to like a college, which back then was a lot more kind of vocational and hands-on courses, where I kind of like followed my friends because they were all going to the sixth form. And yeah, probably close to my house as well. So probably two very bad reasons, but that was where my mindset was. Like I was just like, education was just something that happened. You went through the processes, and then it was when the EMA, like they were paying you to go, like you got paid £30 a week or something to go to college. And I used to sign in the morning, go skateboarding, sign in again at lunch, and then go skateboarding again, and went to very, very few of my actual lectures. Terrible, not a great skateboarder, but we spent most of our time eating McDonald's, which didn't help the skateboarding. So, and then
Well, that's what the 30 quid a week was for.
Sorry?
That was what the 30 quid a week was for then.
Yeah, that's where it all went very quickly at McDonald's. It was a bit cheaper back then. But then my girlfriend at the time, I think, went to university, and I was like, she went away for the first year. I'd go visit her all the time. And I mainly went to university because it's kind of social and fun. And I was working at a bar, and I was like, I can continue to do that. But I'd also, we'd done media, me and my friends at college, and we'd been given some money from the government. Like we wanted to invest in young people. So we started just stupid, randomly started a media production company because we knew this person that had this government funding. So we did it was mainly like doing jobs for them. Like we need to film this social youth group thing. You guys go film it. So like filming and editing. And so that gave me some practical expertise or some practical insights because I've actually done lots of filming and editing. So when I went to uni, I decided I'd go to uni, started on a media course, and I knew all the practical part, and then which was great. And I was helping other people to pick up editing and things like that because I'd done that for about a year. And then I wrote my first assignment for this teacher. No one particularly liked this lecturer, but I wrote my essay for him, and it was kind of like I don't know if they'd added to the course, but it was like let's see if you know how to write an essay, kind of check essay. Like let's see if you can do a bibliography. Let's see if you can structure your essay correctly. And he just came up to me at the end after I handed it in and gone, I think you're dyslexic. So I then went and got checked, and I think it was that combined with I'd had to read for the first, I'd always avoided reading. I would read like graphic novels and watch films, but I never enjoyed reading. So I had to read like academic text, and I was getting headaches. So I was like, I've been to get my eyes checked. Back then they were fine, and I was like, it's either dyslexia or I've got like something up here going on. I need to have to run an MRI or something like that.
Get it checked out, yeah.
So I went to get the dyslexia screening, and I got the report from that. I got kind of the support package, I suppose. But the main thing for me was finding out what I needed to do and like why I hadn't enjoyed reading, because I just assumed it was because I wasn't academic, or it wasn't I couldn't write because I couldn't spell because I was not very clever, and that kind of stuff, or those messages over the years had kind of like dripped in. So I didn't think of myself as someone who could do well academically, and so that teacher taking that time, and then he continued to support me and started showing me how to structure. And because I'd never read or never engaged with education, I was like behind my peers, like if you want to put it that way. Like I didn't know as many words. I didn't know like what semantics meant or discourse. Like some of these words, just never heard them before because I'd never read, or I'd engaged at a very low level academically. So then I felt I had to do a lot of catching up to do, and then I was given some support structures. I given some like colored paper because I also found out I had dyspraxia as well in my eyes, so my eyes like flick around when I'm reading. So once I managed to put these like support mechanisms in place, I was just like became a sponge. I was like reading everything I could. And I figured out a way to write notes in a way that I could point things out. I color coded my notes and things like that. So I started to invent my own systems. Words I couldn't spell, like I wrote them out on sheets of paper over and over again until I could spell them, till it almost became like muscle memory. So I became very proactive then, like once I knew what I had to do. And I always think back to that teacher taking he could have just marked the essay and gone like, yeah, you failed this first part of the course, you got 50, like, sorry, uni's not for you. But he didn't. He spent that time and then he put me on this track. So I always think back to that as kind of a why, that if I can go the extra mile and engage with a student and have that conversation with them, and because you never really know, like everyone's just like I was just a student, like in their class. Like,
yeah,
did he have to do that? Like I'd been a student in classes my entire life, and everyone had seen my writing, and no one had taken that time. So it's about being, hopefully, like trying to be that person for people that's gone like, oh, I can see this is a problem for you. Let's work on that. Here's some support structures, and kind of hopefully empower them to like do what I did, which was just to know what I had to do, and then I can go and tackle it. And I think that's something which is the base that I build everything else on with what I'm doing.
Oh, that's amazing. We find, and the more conversations that I'm having with educators, the more I'm finding as well that there was a key moment in their education where one of their teachers invested into them, just didn't have to do it, but either spoke into them personally, giving them the encouragement and the motivation to go, yeah, you can do this. Or like yourself, having someone go, hey, I can see you struggling in this thing. Maybe you need to look at this. And so there's always a teacher, I think, in everyone's life that they will remember. And often it's not that they remember how they were taught or what they were taught, but it was how that teacher made them feel and encouraged them. And for you, it seems that it was both. Whereas this guy has gone, yeah, I need to look out for this young man, and I can see that there's some issues, so let's try and help him succeed in this area. So it must have felt liberating to finally understand why you didn't like school, or why you got a headache when you read a book, or why you avoided it.
Yeah, it was, and I think once I knew, I'm the kind of like the way I kind of work is once I know what I have to do, I'll go and do it. And I'd always done that through practical means. I'd always done like practical hands-on jobs usually. But yeah, so having a list of strategies to try and then seeing them work, then I knew what I had to do to continue from there. And that made me real. And then I started to get good grades coming in, and I was like, hang on, maybe education is for me. And then that's led to me being a teacher, led to me doing a master's, led to me doing other qualifications. So I think it's that moment, like tipping point, inflection point you can have. I always think multiverses are very popular now. So if that teacher hadn't done that, like, what would I just be? Matt Wemyss, the pub manager, or Matt Wemyss, like something else, like working in Tesco, or working in a supermarket or something like that. Like you never know where, if at that moment hadn't have happened, like where I'd be. And I'm thankful, basically, to where I am now because someone actually taking that time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, I guess we all try and do that. We try and motivate and help the kids where they need it. And sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. But yeah, and then there's those kids who just don't have that opportunity, or they miss the opportunity. They don't.
Well, this was my experience in London, because my first teaching job was in a school that was in special measures, just gone into special measures, or I think they just had a new head teacher come in, and they'd managed to get something called like building schools for the future. Like there was big investments from the government at the time. So they got a new head in who turned around like 3 or 4 schools beforehand, Then they invested. So I went in and interviewed in this campus, like wallpaper was peeling off the walls. It was like falling to pieces. But I then walked in September to like a brand new campus. So they completely rebuilt the whole thing in like 7 weeks, which was like absolutely incredible. And then, where I was dealing with like high levels of deprivation in Tottenham, kids who were very disengaged. And I struggled at first. And luckily for me, there were support mechanisms within the school. Like the students had mentors they could go to. And I would often spend some time with the mentors speaking like, I'm struggling to reach this kid. What can I do? And I ended up with, in some situations, in like mediation meetings, which I tried to not be very like egotistical in the classroom. Like if it's not working, I'm there to get to service the kids, like it's their education. So if I'm the barrier, I need to get out of the way. So I would often have mediation meetings where I would just go to the student like, this is what I'm trying to do. I just want to do this. I just want to teach you. Because IT back in the day, all I want to do is teach you how to use PowerPoint. Like I'm not like, and then they would tell me their point of view, and it was almost like those restorative conversations before it was something that was written about. But again, that was people were there who were willing to support me as a new teacher to kind of figure out what to do when I was at an emotional low of like, I'm new to the profession. Am I doing something wrong? Is it just this kid's a kid who was already quite disengaged with school, but is there anything I can do? And after those conversations, you always walk away thinking everything's going to be amazing. Like, yeah, I reached that kid. Like, we're like, and it's never awesome. But it was incremental steps. And I know at that school for sure that every time, and it's the same way here, even in Romania, like, because you have quite high teacher turnover internationally. You either get people like me who marry someone in Romania and stay in Romania and have kids in Romania, buy a house, or you have teachers that are here for 1, 2, 3 years, and then they go to Malaysia, and then they go to Dubai. Like they're doing the circuit, probably what I would have done when I was younger. But I think then kids like routine, they like consistency. So I think every time there's a break, so when we roll into our October break, same in London, same here. When we come back, the kids trust you a little bit more. December, February, the year rolls round. Like I always think, and I try to say, I'm going to say to the new staff next week when they join us, that it's going to take you a year to like every time. Like if I walk, even in London, if I moved to a different school down the street, like it would have taken me a year to get used to new systems, new policies, new kids, new everything. So like Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think you have to kind of understand you need a little bit of time to bed in and know the kids and understand the culture and do as like a cycle of the teaching sometimes. So I think it's like, that was the main thing for me that helped, is just kind of being there. And then I never expected to go down the pastoral route. I was going to do academic. I was going to be head of department, but our head of department wasn't going anywhere. And I knew that I liked the school. I didn't want to leave the school at that time. So a head of year position came up, and I just went for that. And I didn't expect to get it. I don't think anyone expected me to get it. And I don't know, there's something like loads of staff was like, this guy, like this computer science, this IT guy is going to be the pastoral person. Because I was like, I got doing data and things like that. So I've been kind of pigeonholed into like, he can do the GCSE spreadsheets and things like that for us. So, and then like doing that pastoral side, I don't know, it was like the level of care that unlocked in me then, and the level of like, I would I don't know if fight is the right word, but like I wanted them to do well. Like it became part of my being that I'd wake up in the morning and it was like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to push. Like these kids are going to do well today. If there's any behavior in class, I'm going to deal with it. This kid needs to like, they just became like this fire in me that I had to, supporting these kids in my year group suddenly became this like moral duty. And like and like I was a bit rough on them at times probably, but I had to be occasionally. But I think when I had to do their leaving speech, like I was in tears. Like they were like my kids by that point. Like every single one of them, like I knew them at their best, I knew them at their worst. I knew like even now there's kids that I see who, and I the best way I saw it and I explained to them is like I'm trying to put keys in. I'm trying to give you keys to doors. Like all I can do is control the things I can give you, and I can give you chances and opportunities. And if you want to, and I will rest easy when you get to year 11 if I know I've done everything I can to give you all these opportunities. Like that for me, if I feel I've messed up and I've missed the ability to give you one of those opportunities, I will regret that forever. Um, and I see kids now that have embraced that and have gone on, and I've also seen kids that I feel that I gave them those opportunities and then they made other choices when they left school, and it breaks my
Yeah,
heart. But I think that I can almost emotionally draw a line under it a little. Like I don't know, I'm trying to not say something weird, that I know that I did the best I could.
yeah. No, I completely get it. And having that empathy is, it's just, I think most teachers have it. But then when it's unlocked to that next level, like you're talking about, I remember I was working in a boarding house down in Sydney, and these 35 boarders, they became like my surrogate children. I knew when they were having a good day. I knew when they were having a bad day. I knew when they were racing out the door for their exit weekend, what they'd actually forgotten before they even realised. And you go in and you protect them, and you want to fight for them, because they have, a lot of the time they don't have anyone fighting for them. They're in a boarding house. They don't have their parents going into bat for them every day, because some are overseas, some are constantly traveling, some are just don't have access to communications regularly because they're out in the middle of Australia. So it's one of those things where, yeah, we want every opportunity. We see the unbridled potential in them if they could just turn that to use your analogy, turn that key and open that door to a world of possibilities. So I think it's an amazing thing, and I think listening to it, it goes back to that one teacher, that one lecturer who saw something in you and gave you that key to get through that door, and it's opened up this amazing opportunity for you.
Yeah, for me, that role, that head of year role, it was the best and hardest role I've ever done in education. It,
Pastoral, it takes it out of you, it drains you.
and especially if you had a rough week on safeguarding, like it can just sap your soul. But it's because you care, and that's the thing. Yeah, but I would highly recommend, if you have never considered a pastoral role like that, like maybe give it a go, become a deputy, become like a form tutor, and then see how that feels. But like it was most rewarding. Like some days I miss it now, because I'm mainly doing more academic leadership. And I still interact with the students. I still say hello. I still deal with any behaviour that happens, and talk to students about things. Like run on careers programs and things with them. But it's not that same level of engagement and connection that you have in that kind of lead pastoral role and especially like what we've got now, like over 1,000 students in like a busy school. Um,
Yeah,
it's a really rewarding job, like really, really rewarding. Like I sometimes consider like, shall I just like forget all this and just go back to being like ahead of year, just because it was like I loved it. But I think that, yeah, but it's a really cool job, and I recommend, if you feel, or even like I didn't feel like a pastoral role's for you, I highly recommend you give it a go. It's a
yeah,
really great job.
yeah, and I can speak to that as well. Being a boarding house, I was ahead of middle school house, so I had about, so year 7, 8, and 9, it worked out to be about 60 boys that I had sort of direct pastoral care leadership over, and so yeah, it's super rewarding. I mean, it's tough, and then you add your teaching load onto that, and yeah, it makes it tough, but it's well worth it. I think when you have those, you run into them later on in life, and they just thank you, or when they're exiting school, that, oh, thanks so much for doing this when I was, and you've forgotten about whatever it is you did, but they're like, oh, I remember back in year 9 when I did this, you looked after me, you helped me, and thanks so much. And it's, yeah, you
Well,
find that
when
they
I
hold.
did my headship qualification, I had to go and I think they've changed now, but I had to do a placement in another school. So I finished internationally. We finished teaching in June, and my old school in the UK, I knew the head teacher still, was still open for a month. So I went back there and did the project for 2 weeks. And I was walking around the area because I was staying with a friend of mine who was the head of science. And I was bumping into all my old kids in my year group, even kids at the school that were like in year, because I think I was the year, I became the head of year 8 for a while when someone was away because I think they had an operation or something. So I was there for like 6 months. I became their head of year, and they were like in year 11 now, and they were like remembered me, and it was just really nice to go back. And yeah, it was pleasant, to be honest. Like, because you always think sometimes when you leave a school, that's it. Like, kids have gone,
Yeah.
deleted you, but it was nice to go back, and it was nice to see them again and sit and have a school dinner with them again. It was a pleasure.
Oh, that's brilliant. And they're the stories that we need to hear. I mean, because teaching, we get beat up, and there's teachers leaving left, right, and centre, all around the world because of struggles and battles and lack of support and overwork. And there's I think anyone could speak on hours about that. I threw we met on LinkedIn, and I put up a post actually today. It was a bit of a hand grenade post, just to elicit some conversation and some debate, to get people just talking and getting some dialogue happening, about what's happening in the world of education now. So, which
Well, that's the thing.
leads me.
Our government just changed, and I was thinking because I remember because I did my training when Labour was in power last, and I'd been trained up on how to deliver these diplomas, these new qualifications, and then by the time I stepped foot in the classroom, the government had changed; they were over, and then we went into very like knowledge based curriculum, and it was just things have kind of gone out of whack from there in the UK. And then when the government changed, I was like, oh yeah, because they've just been in power for so long. I was just like, oh yeah, all of those decisions, all those things that I feel were degrading the profession, or the way the press and or even the government sometimes spoke about teachers, and the way way we were perceived, and the way the qualifications changed, and the direction of it. I'm hoping, based on the things I'm seeing come out of the UK now about curriculum review, especially at Key Stage 3, and involving teachers and talking to
Hey,
teachers.
that's
And
a
one of my
novel
favorite
idea, isn't
things
it?
about it as well is there's two things. One was they're going to talk to teachers. The other one was it will all be evidence informed. Like, it's not going to be we feel this, or I once went to Sweden and like they did this, so we're now going to do this.
Yeah,
And they also nicely said we can't promise the world, like be colloquially put it, like anecdotally putting
yeah,
it, but it's like we will change what we can change. Like, we can't
yeah,
promise we're going to make everything amazing, but we will make everything we do change will be based on evidence, and we'll talk to teachers about it, which is already a huge step forward.
yeah. Even just mentioning the fact that they'll talk to teachers about what's happening in the classroom. Yeah, it's a novel approach, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas I always felt like reforms in education, especially when I was in the UK, were things that you were told that were happening. Like,
Yeah,
like this is happening now. These are becoming harder. Like, we're going to throw away the way that you've understood where children are at with the old UK levels. We're going to throw that away for years, and we're just going to. Every school has to make up their own way with no guidance at all. And we're going to change how GCSEs are graded, so you don't even have that as a reference point to make up the grades for the rest of the school. So, good luck. Bye.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's a education. Unfortunately, I think, and it'll never not be a political football, which is sad. But I think there are some things changing and conversations are being had. And speaking of conversations that are being had, I mean, by the sounds of it, you're a super empathetic guy from your heart for students. Yet people would go, hold on, he's empathetic, but he's a computer science and AI guy.
Well,
Is
I
there a correlation?
I want to. Sorry. Let's go start again. My I got into teaching because my friend asked me if I'd go and help some students who didn't do media at school, IGC at GCSE, but wanted to do it at college. If I'd go for a week, and I had a week off work coming up, so I took some holiday and I went and I showed them how to edit, film, put small clips together, do some Photoshop and things like that. And I walked away from that thinking, actually, I really like teaching. And then with my media degree or comms degree, IT was the only way in. So an IT back in the day was pretty simple, to be honest. It was spreadsheets, but I'd done that for jobs. Like I'd worked for the NHS and worked in bars and managed nightclubs and things like that. So I knew how to use a spreadsheet. Like PowerPoint, come on. Databases. Yeah. I worked for the stop smoking service for the NHS one summer, like doing temporary cover, and they didn't have a database. And back then I just got to open up like databases for dummies. So I built them an Access database. So there was nothing really in the curriculum that I hadn't done, like myself personally, practically. So that was my way into teaching. So, and that's one of the things that I still kind of speak to people about is most Key Stage 3 teachers, it's passion for subjects first, and then teaching second, kind of. That makes sense. Like they really like their subject. Whereas I really like teaching. And like my only way to teach was IT, and then IT became computer science. And luckily, part of my training to do IT was Python and things like that. So I know something, but all the programming I do is self-taught, and all the website stuff I do is self-taught, and everything because I did that, and I just think that I have I like teaching. Like you could put me, I couldn't do maths, or I couldn't do English because of dyslexia probably. But I reckon you could probably drop me into most subjects, and I'd like teaching it. Like I do like when I'm covering classes, I'll do a bit of geography, I'll do a bit of I like PSHE. I try to do those classes if I can because it's just nice to talk to students about. They're mainly discussion based, and discussion based subjects, and that's one of the joys where you find those unassessed subjects. Like there's no stakes, there's no final grade. You might need to put a comment on a report card or something like that every now and then, but it can mainly be, let's find out what you feel about that. Let me challenge you. Let's challenge each other's opinions and let's have a discussion about it. Which is why I like, if I can, dip my toes into some PSHE lessons. But yeah, like I am very empathetic. This is one of those things where almost to the point where I occasionally have to like shut myself off from people. And if people around me are in terrible moods, I'll eventually become in a terrible mood. Like I'm quite an emotional sponge. So I do need like the occasional palate cleanser from people to kind of expel kind of the vibes that I've kind of absorbed during the day, which is probably why I try to keep things positive and focused around me, because I'm very much, if people around me are miserable, I become miserable very quickly. Like I just kind of like the vibes hit me.
Yeah. Emotions are so contagious. It's crazy. You just feel it, and you pick it up. You walk into a room and you can feel it. Like you walk into a classroom, or you walk into whatever it is, and you feel that. Well, I do anyway, and by the sounds of it, you do as well. You just pick up. It's like, nah, I can't do this for too long, and I'm out of here. So.
Yeah, what do you mean? Because I do a lot of lesson observations now, and there's no fine art to lesson observations. They're never like short form drop-ins or long form lessons. There's always personal opinion, and they're open to scrutiny. There's always that gap of like 20%. Like we could see the same thing and we'd have 20% differentiation or something like between what we'd say. But you can feel the vibes when you walk into a room. Like it could be a completely quiet classroom and you can feel the vibes. It could be a load of kids running around and it looks like absolute chaos, but you can feel the vibes. You can kind of like know if, I'd hate to use the word productive, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you can feel learning is happening. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You can feel it's happening.
Yeah, a noisy, messy classroom doesn't mean nothing. The kids aren't learning.
It depends.
It can
You can
mean
have a
that. It
couple of
can mean
I've
that.
seen some noisy,
Well,
messy classrooms in my time that weren't learning wasn't happening.
yeah, and like you said, on the flip side, it could be a dead quiet classroom, and again, same thing.
Oh,
It
same
could
thing,
be.
same thing. Yeah,
It could,
they're the ones where like, oh well, they were all writing and they were all quiet, and that's where you can have that. You have to look under the surface a little bit to actually to unpick what's going on, because yeah, you can be deceived by a quiet, like what's it, poor proxies for learning they call them, like where kids they look like they're doing busy work essentially.
yep.
Like when I was at school, you had to, here's your textbook, copy this from your textbook into your book. Now copy that from this page to this page. Was some of my lessons when I was growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Write it all out. Write the words out. Write the words out. Do it again. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you
and
did
then
that
it's
too
like, well,
much.
you've
Do
written
it
it three
again.
times. You must know it by now, and we're going to move on and never check that. You've never checked that again.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's yeah. It sounds we're probably I think I'm just a tad older than you, but it's very similar. I think education at that stage was across the world, especially I'm in Australia. You're in England, not too dissimilar at all. So yeah, it sounds like we've had pretty similar journeys as such. And trust, I would much rather have been skateboarding than being in school as well. So, and quite often I was. So,
Well, this is the thing. Like the idea is that I would, because I do a lot. I do like the curriculum and teaching and learning now for Key Stage 3 and up at my school. And if a child is deciding to go skateboarding rather than coming to school, I know there's only like controls so much, but that general vibe is if they're making that choice, then we're doing something wrong. If they're not
yeah,
seeing the purpose of what we're doing to the point where they think they can just go skateboarding and eat McDonald's, it's number one. Why didn't anyone have a conversation with me at the school?
yeah,
Like, if I didn't show up to my lessons for that long because I was skateboarding and didn't you notice I was only showing up to like get a mark in the morning and afternoon, then disappearing? So number one, pastorally, what was going on, and number two, where was the engagement there? And I know that the tipping point of like you can do all sing dances and all the lessons are absolutely fantastic, but and some kids are going to be disengaged, but like if kids are making that choice to go, then what are we doing about it?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
What are
think
we doing?
sometimes there is that in education, and I tried to bring that into what I do at my school. Is like we've noticed this, and lots of people sit there go like, we've noticed like this kid isn't doing very well in maths, and it's just asking that simple question, and what are we going to do about it then? And I think
Yeah,
sometimes there's lots of like noticing things. We're very good at noticing things, teachers, but like it's having that question of like, okay, I've noticed that these kids can't do this in my lesson. Okay, so what are you going to do about it then? And it's that always that going back to what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? And like, what are we going to do to fix or try to do whatever we can to fix that issue?
yeah. It's like why? What are we doing to actually keep them engaged rather than what are we doing that disengages them?
Yeah, and I know that I want to work on our Key Stage 3 curriculum, and we've done some work on it, but it needs, because you've got the GCSEs and you've got schemes of work coming in from exam boards, and you've got things, so you're a little bit more constrained when you get older. I'm not saying you can't have fun and be creative, but you are constrained to a certain extent. But the national curriculum for Key Stage 3 is there's scope there. So I
Yeah,
want to continue to look at Key Stage 3 as a place where we can experiment a little bit more and have a little bit more fun and be a bit more adventurous. So that's something we're going to look at this year.
yeah. Is that where you could think? With I know you talk a lot about AI and trying to implement in different ways. Do you think that stage 3 area is a place where you could work that into the curriculum in a way that is productive for students and for the teachers?
In terms of the digital literacies, what I'm working on, that's going to be rolled out in year 8, and 9, and then year 10 or 11 because time's constrained there. So probably that'll be tutor PSHE kind of stuff. It'll have to go into there. But digital literacy, we're working on a program for Key Stage 3, year 7, 8, and 9. But primarily, we're still at the stage where I'm just encouraging teachers to use AI to support planning and resource creation. And I think that can really yield benefits to speed up that workload and also help people try new things. I've written quite a few times about AI as like CPD, because we often weren't trained in problem-based learning or gamification or different approaches. Like I was trained very traditionally in how to teach, like beginning, middle, and end. And I just think that you can use it to give you new insights on activities or pieces of group work. And next year, I've been given the green light to use chatbots in the curriculum with year 10. So the year 10 teachers are going to be trained up on how to create like bespoke educational chatbots for their
Yep.
lessons. And then they will be rolling that out. We're rolling that out with year 10. So they're the students that will be in our school be exposed the most to student facing AI, let's call it,
Yeah.
where they will be interacting with bots either in class or as part of, I don't like the word homework, but if they've got an assessment coming up, like maybe a bespoke revision buddy kind of thing, that was like something that's trying to go for something that's a quick win, that like, yeah, okay, I know you've got an assessment coming up. Yes, you've got the resources from the teacher, but if there's something you don't understand, will having an AI chatbot that can be patient and re-explain and quiz you and see where you're at, that like one of the quickest wins to kind of get staff and students on board with more student-facing stuff. But we've already experimented this year with like chatting in Spanish to the chatbots, role-playing characters. So that will continue in Key Stage 3. But the most kind of I've been given a year to kind of prove it'll have a positive impact, because I think it's anecdotally and it's kind of a feeling from my own experiences with my students. But I've been given a year before we go whole school, because it's a big investment in terms of time to get the teachers ready and also financially to get all the queries and tokens and work with the company and that kind of stuff. So I've been given a year to show that it can have a positive impact. So measuring that, rolling that out, doing surveys with students and staff and checking on progress. That's going to be the project for next year, to kind of try to show the positive of what student facing AI can do and see where we go from there.
Yeah, so that sounds really interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing about it, and then seeing what the results are at the end of the year, as far as how successful or what parts were successful, and then if what needs to be tweaked. Because I know there's a lot of talk that two states, state education systems in Australia have released their own chatbots. So South Australia and New South Wales have done it. I'm assuming the other states are building theirs or working out what they're going to do. But for those people who, I guess, you and I, we sort of deal with it every day, and we sort of understand a little bit of the behind the scenes of stuff, especially when we're developing stuff for student, as we say, as you said, student facing. But everyone hears about, and teachers go, well, what about all the mistakes it makes? And they put a nice word, hallucinations, but it does make a mistake because it's generative. So what are you doing, or what's the Cambridge School doing in order to make these chatbots less likely to? Are you giving it its own training data, or is it just
Training data? Because you can upload resources in the platform that we're using. And also, I'm just finding that if you are dealing with things which are known, like some science which is never going to change, some like maths gets a little bit tricky, but the platform we're using has a Wolfram Alpha Maths plugin, so it handles maths like very well.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think if you're going for things that are known, and you're dealing with like factually known information, I think it's when you get into that, when you're pushing an AI into that zone where things are on the edge, if there's something that, things aren't as cut and dry, there's a gray area around certain things, that's where the hallucinations can creep in. So I think we're training data and using them for quite constrained purposes. And I'm not by any shape or means giving students open ChatGPT or anything like that. We are saying you are a revision bot, or you are a helper bot to help students learn, or a quiz bot for this, this, and this, and or you are help them to decode their programming. Like, it's a very constrained use case we're using them for, and I'm finding the more kind of you ring fence it in, like, and there's arguments for and against that. But I'm finding if you want to reduce the hallucinations, like capping it to certain things, and capping it to things are known. There's certain things in science which aren't going to change, geography, which aren't going to change. But also the platform we're using, we can seal the conversations. So I think that's very important. So we can unpick at the back if something's gone wrong, or if the students' interactions aren't totally legit. Let's call it that way. But
because you know, there's going to be some students who are going to be asking, pushing it to try and break it, because that's what we like to do. We try and break. We want to try and break
fine.
things.
But I mean, if they start doing some student stuff, push the boundaries a bit too far, we can check. And also for peace of mind of us, peace of mind for parents, because it's all new and there's a little bit of fear, a lot of fear around AI in the press and the media, like job displacement, so like. And everyone will. There'll be headlines about when stuff goes wrong, but there's never like that many headlines when things go absolutely fine. So just having those, constraining it, training, being very open with staff, being open with students, and having those access to the conversations as well, so we can fix things as we go as well, and also spot errors and issues. And it's going to be I've done things on a I would say small scale, because it's mainly been me, and then some as we got to the last 2 months of school, trying it in science, trying it in languages, trying it in English, like rolling it out and testing different platforms to see which one worked the best for us. And then now it's going to be the pressure's on, I suppose, for me, is to show that you can train a group of, I don't know, year 10 to probably like 10, 12 teachers on how to create these bots and then work well and have a positive impact. So I think that for me, I suppose for me personally, there's pressure, but I think also probably for the LinkedIn AI community, like I feel a little bit of pressure there as well, because if I start going like, no guys, it doesn't work. Like, I don't know, like I want to make it work. Like I'm not going to bias it. Like, but I would want to see this as something we can make productive use of in schools, because it's going to be around when they leave school. It's going to be around when they go to university. It's going to be around in their jobs. So if we can build productive habits in students, then I think that's where I feel the pressure. So there's multiple bits of pressure next year around this pilot project. I'm just going to try my best to do it as close to like an academic study as you can. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to benchmarks, get survey data, analyze it. I want try to make it so there's very little that can be pushed back on externally. And if it's not working, I'm always honest if things don't work. And I think that's the best thing we can do, is just try things. And I just really want to make this trial a successful trial, in terms of a good trial, not kind of like I'm going to force it. If it's going badly, I'm going to cover it up and keep going.
You'll pull the pin to say and just go, well, look, we tried, it didn't work. Let's go back to the books and
like, if you wanna do it in tiers, like here's tier 1 that you can do with students that I know 100% is working. Here's like one which is a bit more risky, which you can get like 60% returns on, like in terms of these kind of things, and like kind of trying to level it up. So there's different ways you can, like, low stakes, and sometimes I feel pressure when you're on LinkedIn, because I think some of the things I'm doing is like old stuff with new tools, but you've got to start somewhere. And I think there's an entry point to these things. And if I said, right, I'm going to get myself out of the classroom and it's just going to be a chat bot, and I'm going to see how that goes for a year, I think that is a bit of more of a leap that people wouldn't be able to get on board with, because it's a big leap. Whereas if I go like, okay, here's some places you can slot chatbots in in year 1. Here's what year 2 can look like. Here's what year 3 could look like. Or here's what the first 6 months are like, trying to give you incremental steps of how you could essentially get up to the point where maybe you could lead a lesson as a guide with a chatbot dealing with the factual data and then guiding students through a project or coming up with their own rubrics. So I think there's got to be, if we want to get the education profession on board with AI, you can't skip to the revolution evolution stage. You can't skip to the end. Can't go to Z. You've got to work your way through the alphabet a little bit with it. So I hear some of the stuff I hear, and I sometimes think, yeah, I'm just doing the same old stuff, just with a different tool. But I feel there has to be an entry point, and you've got to show people the rewards or the positive sides first before you get on board. I think you've got to make it accessible to people.
Yeah, and look, and some of those old things work. So if they are working and they're working effectively, they might be working and ineffective, but if they're working and they're effective, and then AI can help make them more effective or more efficient, perhaps, probably not the right word, but why not give it a go?
But this is the thing for me. Like, I became a big fan of the chatbots when, in a computer science class, especially because I was teaching year 13, they've written like 100 lines of code. By the time I've come to them, read 100 lines of code, tried to find where the error is, or work with them to try to find the error. And sometimes it's a missing bracket, sometimes it's a semicolon, sometimes it's a bigger structural issue. That's 10 minutes. Then I've got a class full of students who they've been left for 10 minutes, essentially, because I've got to sit with this one student. So if they can work with this AdaBot to put their code in and go through the experience that I would do with them, directing them to certain lines of code and say, maybe you should look at your function headers, or maybe you should look at this. Like, it was acting as me, and it allowed me to know if I had to deal with like something that was a very high level problem with the student, that there was some of that low level stuff, which might just be a missing bracket, and the bot might have solved that. They put the bracket in, they could carry on coding for the rest of the lesson instead of waiting for 10 minutes for me to come. And that's 10 minutes of lost time. So I think there is scope in lessons to gain some time and student attention, because students only have about 30 seconds of a minute each in a class.
Yeah.
After you've done the procedural stuff of starting a lesson, ending a lesson, telling them what they're going to do. And time with students is very limited. So if I can find ways to get more time, and that programming chatbot, debugging bot, was a way to instant benefits of time, where students had there was 9.5 minutes of productive time instead of 9.5 minutes of waiting for me, instead of just putting a bracket, because the chatbot had said, maybe look at your function headers and go, oh yeah, done.
Yeah, it's pointing at the low level things where you've given, as the teacher, you've given them instruction and the knowledge and the ability to implement it, and then they, like any student, they learn, and by learning, you need to fail. But rather than, like you said, you spending, you got a class of 20, you don't have 200 minutes in a class to spend with each student. So then that could knock on for, depending on your timetable, could take 3 weeks to get to the last student. By that time, he's given up or she's given up, and you've lost, all that learning. Whereas, if it's at that level where it can go, it doesn't give them the answer. It says, hey, have a look around this section. Then, I can't. I mean, if it's helping the teacher and more importantly, helping the student in a productive way, then I think, I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes over the year. Now, you're training teachers as well, so that's another tough gig. Is that part of the conference? Am I saying it right?
AI education, yeah, AI education. So that for me it's another way of just getting the word out there and offering CPD, because we charge for the event. It's like 80, I think this year, €85 a ticket. But I'm trying to promise the most bang for the buck that you'll get for an AI CPD day for a teacher. If you want to send along a team of people, you should hear like inspiration, how to safeguard, practical applications. People that have actually done it, people that are for it, some opinions that are going to be there which are not completely against, but are cautious.
Yep.
And I think you'll get like you almost got Dan Fitzpatrick to start the day. It's great at giving the inspiration where education could be in the future, and the impact that AI will have, or the conversations we should be having because AI is here, and what skills the students need to have. But ending the day with Philippa Reifmal, who's very much about ecosystems, implementation, speaking to your IT team, how to do it on the ground, and also safeguarding. So you might get inspired throughout the day of how to use AI chatbots or use it for planning. But then I tactically wanted to put at the end of the day, you're going to go do all these cool things. Like, this is how you do it, like sensibly, in a sensible, safeguarding manner at the end of the day. So I at least felt that people were leaving the conference hopefully excited, hopefully with loads of things they can try, but they're going to try them safely and carefully with safeguarding in mind, and also not give their IT managers an absolute nightmare when they get back into school and try a load of things.
Yeah, you want to keep the IT guys on side, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and especially because I'm doing a webinar later today about the EU AI Act, and we need to have more oversight now with that, especially in the EU. Like, there's not impacts people who develop software more than us as school leaders, but I think, or schools using AI, but I think we need to dot our I's and cross the T's. And I firmly believe that a school leader or the leadership team should know what AI platforms their staff are using. I don't believe it should be completely unregulated, where they're just, some of them are using different wrapper platforms, some of them are using ChatGPT, some of them are using this. I think you have a duty of care to at least know what your staff, what AI your staff are using. Like, who knows? Like, you could have a staff member who's rolling out student chatbots and things to students, and you don't know. Like, I think it's very important that school leaders at least have some kind of audit, or of at least, I don't like risk assessments. I do a lot of compliance at my job, so at least looked at the risks and had those conversations, like you said, about hallucinations. If you're going to upload, what information you can put in there, like student names and things like that. So I think you need to have some conversation. I don't think schools can afford to have completely unregulated usage of AI. I think that's tricky territory.
Yeah, I would have to 100% agree with you on that one. Privacy for students and families is, and yeah, closed systems, sure. And I know a lot of schools are either developing their own, much like yourself, but are closed off. They're working with some big companies, but they're keeping them so that no one has access to it but the school. And again, like normal school databases, only X, Y, and Z have access to more of the detailed notes about that student or about the parents, or whatever it is. So I think teachers and schools are making some good steps forward, and they're well measured. They're not just going headlong into it, which I think is
I think that's the best way. And like for us, started with staff first, training them on how to use it, what it is, so they can answer students' questions and doing some education with them. They don't need to be experts in what AI is and what machine learning is. They don't need to know the broad strokes of what's happening and how ChatGPT works and why hallucinations or something happen. So they're at least aware, but showing them how they can generate 15 retrieval practice questions to start a lesson using, there are some really nice online tools where you can upload your lesson resource and it'll turn it into a quiz. So why not use that to save time? So,
absolutely.
But then also there's dangerous use cases, like we've seen online, people post about grading. It's not very accurate when it comes to grading because it's not built to grade. It can give feedback, and I think it has a place. And that's one area I want to experiment next year, a place in like formative assessment. But I think I did our survey and one staff member logged back that they've been using it to grade students' work. And I'm like, okay, but that's something I didn't ever. In fact, I've told people not to do that in my school, and we do a lot of training and messaging about it in my school, and we've got a bit of unregulated like use off to the side. So this is why I think that it's and grading the work from what I'm reading in the EU AI Act, that's quite high risk, because if you're putting that into a student's academic portfolio, and that's going to have an impact. In I don't know, it's like in Australia, but they have a transcript in Romania, so every grade counts, or every grade has to be reported to the government. So it can actually have a knock-on impact when because they get the GCSE, they get the British exams, but they turn them into the Romanian diploma, and the internal grades from the school count as well. So yeah, it can have a roll-on impact if you're using it to grade and things like that. So I think teachers need to be aware of positive use cases and use cases which like aren't encouraged. So again, if you've had zero messaging from your school at this point, I think that every school leader needs to have something in place, especially with like the EU Act, especially in the EU with this act being in force. Like the potential fines, it doesn't really say in the act. Like it says, if you develop a system that does some of these things, your fines, and they're huge. But like, there's no real clear cut fining for a school that maybe rolled something out which had a negative impact. But that, I think, that's probably for the courts to decide in the future. But yeah, I don't think there's that safety net. And one thing that is really nice that's in the AI Act is if you are asking your employees or people in your organization to use AI, then they should have mandatory AI literacy training by February 2025. So, so that's I think that's a big positive step forward, that you have to have done AI literacy training for your staff if you're deploying any AI systems. So I think that's a really positive move that's in there. But also, yeah, if you haven't audited what your staff are doing, you could be a head teacher with a school that are using AI without AI literacy training, and who knows what that could result in. So there might be a bit more of a focus now with this regulation coming in.
Yeah, because I mean, I know Australia has created its artificial intelligence framework for education, and I think again, it was one of those things that needed to be done and done quite quickly. But like any of these major documents, they are also working documents. So I think they're looking at the EU Act as well to see what can be implemented that would suit the Australian environment anyway. So
I know, and I think that it's good guidance, but it doesn't come in. It's like they say it's in effect now, but it doesn't come into full effect for like 2 or 3 more years. Like it's incremental stages. But I just like the fact that AI literacy one was quite early on in the rollout for February next year. So that should be very positive. And I think everyone that works in organizations and schools in the EU need to be aware of that. I think unless they're going down the route of completely banning everything, which I think is a little bit short-sighted. Everything in moderation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of moderation, I'm very appreciative of your time, and I want to respect the time. And I know you just said you've got a webinar to present to later on today, and you're just at the end of your holiday, so I don't want to take up more time than I need to. And yeah, I just want to again, thank you so much for your time. I've got a couple of last questions just to wrap up. As I always do, we've covered some great stuff, and got to know a lot more about you. And it's great to see what you're doing over in Romania. So that's fantastic, and yeah, try and get there one day. But just to wrap up, just a couple of quick questions. First one is, what's your favorite drink?
Cola Zero. I'm going to go. I was going to go. If it's non-alcohol, it's probably Cola Zero or coffee, and then G&T, classic G&T.
You're a true Englishman, aren't you? That's fantastic. If you could, what would be a challenge that you would pose to the people listening today?
Ooh, I would. Ooh, you got me now. I would say I'm trying to think what the main thing be. I would just like if you talk about the with the AI hat on, I would say challenge. Just go and ask it to come up. Type in your learning objectives, who you're teaching. Ask it to come up with 15 Bloom's taxonomy questions, and then see how that feels, and then go from there.
Yeah, just give it a crack.
Yeah, and that's the way that I try to end workshops now. Is actually get people. What were you going to do when you after this workshop? Let's try to do that now with an AI co-pilot and see how that feels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I always encourage just try it, just have a go. If you don't like it, okay, that's okay. But you never know. So now, do you have a favorite quote or mantra that resonates with you, or that you sort of hold that you hold on to that gets you through each day, or that's just been something part of your life?
I'm not very quotey. That's one of the things I need to work on for keynotes. I've never put quotes. Just like what we said earlier, what are we going to do about it? That's mainly my mantra is like, okay, AI's here. What are we going to do about it? This kid's not doing very well in maths. What are we going to do about it? Like, be
No,
proactive and practical is what I can say.
that's perfect. Now, in discussing AIs, there's 1,001. Well, there's probably more than that now, but there's a few key large language models that most people play around with. What's your favorite one?
Me, I mainly do all my training and stuff with ChatGPT because it's like now it's freely available. Like the most advanced version of that is free. That's the main one that I use. I use Claude a little bit more now to do some more writing projects to help me as an editor and proofreader. But I would say ChatGPT is my main go-to, and that's the one I would say for educators, unless you've got Microsoft Copilot or something like built in to your school
Yep.
ecosystem that's enterprise. I'm not sure what the Google Frame system looks like, but you might have Gemini. I was on Google Docs the other day, and Gemini was in there.
Yeah, it's
So
popping up
just try
everywhere.
to use the one that you can get access to for free that has the most advanced version, is what I can say. Like, I will always use, in the moment, I use ChatGPT 4.0 for demonstrations because it's free and it's the most advanced. And I think I don't want staff spending money out of their own pockets.
Yeah,
If their school's happy to pay, go for it. But I don't think that teachers personally should be spending hundreds of dollars or pounds on supporting themselves on their AI journey.
yeah, absolutely. Now, there was one question I was going to ask you, but we covered that right at the beginning, and it was about, do you have any tattoos? For those not watching, Matthew has quite a few. He's well adorned, and they
Got
are
one
nice and
sleeve and a
colourful
little
too.
bit on the chest here,
Oh, look
and
at that.
then 3 on this arm as well. I need to
Ah,
get one. I need to get something to commemorate my kids, but I don't know what to get. I don't want like a footprint or anything like that. I don't know what. I don't know what I'm gonna. I need to think of that one a little bit more.
No, I've got just along here, just sort of around my, next to my heart, is all my kids. They're just their little nicknames that we've called them since they were wee ones. So,
That's the thing. I haven't
so that
settled on a nickname. They've got about 500 nicknames each. So that's my problem. I just keep cycling through or creating new ones for them. So I need to settle. I need to come up with settle on a nickname, and then that can form the basis of the next piece of body art.
absolutely. Now, lastly, but certainly not least, we've talked a lot. We met on LinkedIn, but if people want to find out more about you, where is the best place, or where can they reach out to you?
Mainly LinkedIn, and there's like links to my blog there. I post occasionally on YouTube and Instagram. I posted a few TikTok videos, but then I got a sinus infection, so I couldn't speak for most of the summer, so that kind of drifted off. But yeah, mainly LinkedIn's like the main platform. I'm around on the other places, but LinkedIn's mainly where I post.
Ah, fantastic! I'll put a link to your profile in the show notes.
Okay,
But
great.
Matthew, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you. It's great to finally catch up.
No, it's been really great to catch up and sync time zones.
Yeah, yeah. It's always a challenge. Australia, yeah, it's either late at night or early in the morning. But when I'm running on UK is great, and I've found that Romania, whilst you're on holidays, is good.
Oh no, it's great. It's lovely over here at the moment.
So, but no, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me on the Tattoo Teacher podcast. You enjoy the last little bit of your summer break, and I hope the year kicks off really well. And I really look forward to seeing how this journey with Year 10 and deploying those chatbots goes.
Okay, thanks, Phil. It's been really nice to catch up.
Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.